Let me share with you the unforgettable day when my dad finally met my girlfriend of 8 months. What truly caught me off guard was how my usually stern father transformed into this completely different person. The moment she walked through our front door, the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly when my girlfriend, being her naturally charming self, brought out a homemade apple pie she'd baked using my grandmother's recipe. A recipe I'd casually mentioned to her months ago, in a heartwarming turn of events. My dad, who rarely shows emotion, broke into the biggest smile I'd seen in years, and immediately launched into stories about his own mother baking that exact same pie. Much to my astonishment, the next 3 hours flew by, as they bonded over everything from classic rock music to their shared love of mystery novels, while I sat there watching in amazement, barely getting a word in edgewise. The most touching moment came when my girlfriend was leaving. My father, who had never hugged any of my previous girlfriends, gave her a warm embrace and insisted she come back for Sunday dinner the following week. Looking back on that evening, it became crystal clear why some people believe in fake news. Sometimes two people just click in the most unexpected ways, and watching my girlfriend and my father form such an instant connection made me realize I'd found someone truly special. He had been dreading this moment for weeks. Sitting in the car outside his childhood home, he gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart pounded in his chest, his stomach twisted into knots. His dad was waiting inside, and so was she. This wasn't just any introduction. This wasn't just some casual dinner. This was his father. The man who had shaped his entire life, who had expectations, who carried opinions like weapons. And then there was her. The woman he loved. The woman who had changed everything for him. The woman he wasn't sure his father would ever accept. She reached over, placing a soft hand on his knee. "Hey," she said gently, "it's going to be fine." He turned to her, his breath catching. She looked so confident, so calm, like she had no idea the kind of man she was about to face. "Yeah," he lied. "Fine." But deep down he knew better. Because he knew his father, and this wasn't going to be fine at all. He forced himself to take a deep breath, gripping the door handle. There was no turning back now. As they stepped out of the car, she squeezed his hand, offering him that same reassuring smile. She wasn't afraid, but that was because she didn't know him yet. His father, a man who had built his world on expectations, traditions, and unshakable beliefs. A man who spoke his mind, consequences be damned. A man who had already warned him, more than once, about the kind of woman he should bring home. And she was everything his father would disapprove of, but she was also everything he wanted. The front door swung open before they even reached it. His father stood there, arms crossed, face unreadable. His sharp eyes scanned them both, lingering on her for a second too long. "Here we go, Dad," he said, forcing his voice to stay steady. I know who she is." His father cut in, his tone clipped. "Come in." His stomach tightened. He shot her a quick glance, but she only smiled politely, stepping inside like she wasn't walking into enemy territory. The dining room was set for three. The air was thick with something unsaid, something heavy. His father took his seat at the head of the table, watching them like a hawk. She sat down beside him, perfectly composed. If she sensed the tension, she didn't show it. For the first few minutes, it was bearable. His father asked the usual polite questions, where she was from, what she did, little things that didn't matter. She answered every question with grace, never faltering. But then it happened. The shift. His father leaned back, setting his fork down. His expression hardened. "So tell me," he said, his voice colder now. "What exactly do you see in my son?" The question was innocent on the surface, but he knew what it meant. It wasn't curiosity, it was a challenge. His pulse spiked, but before he could speak she did, and what she said next changed everything. She didn't hesitate. didn't stutter, didn't shrink under his father's intense gaze. Instead, she smiled, slow, confident, steady. "What do I see in your son?" she repeated, tilting her head slightly. "That's easy." She reached for his hand under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze, before turning her full attention back to his father. "I see a man who is kind, loyal, and strong. Someone who doesn't just listen to me, but hears me. I see a man who challenges me to be better, who stands by me even when things get hard." His father's face remained unreadable, but there was a flicker of something, surprise maybe, before it vanished. She wasn't finished. "I see someone who grew up in the shadow of expectations but still found a way to be his own person." Her voice softened, but there was a steel edge to it. "I see a man who deserves to be loved for who he is, not for who someone else thinks he should be." Silence. His breath caught in his throat. He had never heard anyone speak to his father like that. Ever. And his father. For the first time in his life, the man had nothing to say. The tension in the room thickened. His father's jaw tightened. His eyes locked onto hers, sharp and searching, as if trying to find a crack in her confidence. But there wasn't one. She met his gaze head-on, unshaken. Finally, after what felt like forever, his father exhaled. He picked up his glass, took a sip, then leaned back. A slow smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. "You've got a hell of a mouth on you," he muttered, shaking his head. She grinned. "I do." And just like that, the battle was over. The war. Maybe not. But for now, she had won, and the look his father gave him, before taking another sip of his drink, it said everything. She might be troubled, but damn it, I respect her. And for the first time in his life, he saw something he never expected to see. His father was impressed. The sound of laughter filled the backyard as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the gathering. Plates clinked, conversations hummed, and the scent of grilled steak and roasted vegetables filled the air. She was standing near the fire pit, effortlessly laughing at something his father had just said. Not just laughing, teasing him. And the most shocking part, his father was laughing too. Not the stiff, polite chuckle he used to give when forced into social settings. Not the cold, calculating smirk that usually came before a passive-aggressive remark. A real, genuine laugh. He leaned against the porch railing, watching in disbelief as his father poured her another drink, shaking his head like he still couldn't believe she had forced her way into his world, but she had. From the moment she had stared him down at that dinner table, she had refused to be intimidated, refused to bend. And somehow she had turned his father, the man who had once been his biggest critic, the one who had always judged his choices, into someone who actually respected the woman he loved. It hadn't been easy. There had been battles, heated debates, tense moments where he thought his father would never come around. But she never backed down. And now, his father looked at her with something he had never seen him give to anyone outside of blood. Pride. A strong arm suddenly clapped his back, pulling him out of his thoughts. He turned to see his father beside him, holding out a drink. "She's something else," his father muttered, watching her with a small smirk. He took the glass, raising a brow. "So, I finally made a good choice." His father scoffed. "She made the good choice. You just got lucky." He let out a laugh, shaking his head. But before he could respond, his father's voice dropped lower. "Don't screw it up," he said, his tone serious now. "She's worth fighting for." A lump formed in his throat. It wasn't "I approve." It wasn't "You have my blessing." But coming from his father, it was as close to love as he was ever going to get. And as he looked over at her, her eyes bright, her smile easy, he knew one thing for sure. She was his greatest choice. And he wasn't going to screw it up.